I think maybe Ellie, we can start now.
Sure, we can start now. And welcome everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to our second virtual meetup 2020. Tableau User Group Manila meetup. Let's start our virtual meetup with a survey. If given a chance and that the pandemic situation is already behind us, which places would you be traveling to post COVID? If you would, if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would it be? So I'm allowing everyone to annotate the screen. I would like to go to my initials E, or anyone can type in your answers. Let's see. Oh, Dwight, South Korea, Thailand, Philippines, Singapore. Mendelsohn, where are you? Philippines, Australia, France. Okay. Any more?
Oh, we have some in the chat as well, Ellie. We've got Canada,
Sure.
where Mendelsohn is now, uh, Austria, Germany, Maldives, North Pole. Bit cold there, I hear.
Sure.
Oh, Canada. Canada's got a lot of
Canada's
Koreans.
repping today. Oh,
I
Oh,
know.
yeah, that's a good answer, everyone. Thank you for participating this short poll. I will sending the tickets on by email.
gotta be first class, Ellie. Gotta be first
Yes,
class.
sure. I will stop annotating. Okay. So let's go proceed to agenda. And before we proceed, let me introduce myself. I'm Ellie from Emerson. I'm working with marketing and a seasoned data science visualization expert. With me, Jason, another tag leader, also working with data warehousing, Tableau servers, and some engineering works on the data. Uh, and let's see the agenda. Opening introduction and welcome remarks by yours truly. Tableau news and updates by Caroline Yam, a Tableau community leader from Asia Pacific and Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And let's have the introduction of guest speaker by Jason, another Tag Manila leader. And the topic is the Tableau for the CPG industry. And the final session would be Q&A and closing remarks. All right. For the opening introduction, uh, I have a short message for the opening introduction as we practice Tableau day to day from different industries and expertise. This community is for us to collaborate, help each other grow, share our best practices, and make new friends in data analytics industry. Our group is formed for the benefit of every Tableau users in the Philippines. Our team goal is in support of the Tableau mission of helping organizations and global enterprise across all industries drive future success and change, which on top of that will benefit our user community because we are recognized by Tableau. We are privileged to get the latest Tableau updates and technologies pertaining to managing data, and business intelligence. That is why I am inviting everyone to actively engage and collaborate through our Facebook page and other media. I also encourage everyone to participate by sharing their insights. We can schedule you as a speaker on our next virtual meetup. It can be a traditional sharing of Tableau experience or a demo. On an added note, we are looking forward to have a group recognized by the SEC, get registered and recognized, and have our set of officers soon. And let's us continue to drive excellence, empower, and support every user in our country. So thank you. And now let's listen to Caroline for some Tableau news.
Thanks for the introduction, Ellie. Oh, and
Oh, sorry.
yeah, no, you go.
Okay. This from this the activities that we had. So the first meet up, July 20, last July 20, we had 61 attendees and participants from different industry. Now we have 103 Facebook group members and happened and attended Tableau Live virtual conference. So anyone from the participants who had already attended the Tableau Live, and welcome to our new members, 42. Welcome if you are here. You can raise your hand and say hello, and you can chat in the type box. So take two. Let's listen to Caroline for the news and updates.
Thanks. Take two. Okay. Hi, everyone. Like Ellie said, I'm Caroline. I'm from the Tableau community team. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Can you guys see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. So hi everyone. As you can tell by my accent, or maybe it's not super strong. I'm from Australia. I'm based out in Sydney, but as Ellie said, I look after the user groups and Tableau community across Asia Pacific and Europe. So here today, I'm here to give a quick update on what happened at the Tableau Conference 2020, the experience. As you know, we're in a weird time, everything was virtual. So of course, our conference was also virtual. So if you were able to attend or if you weren't, here's a quick recap. It was 100% free and virtual. It was open to everyone everywhere in the world. So it was back in October for the 6th to the 8th. For us, it would have been on October the 7th to the 9th. So it was 3 days filled of data and 3 days filled of fun. We had over 195 countries participating and about 100,000 attendees, which is crazy. So that's 72 hours of content and data insights. The content that was from there is actually still available for you to watch. So if you missed out, you can go back onto the website and have a look. So if you want to catch up, that's the link there, tc20.tableau.com, easy to remember. You log in using your Tableau account details, and then from there, you can actually view all the different videos. If you're not too sure what you should watch, kind of new to the conference, if you've never been before, I've put some recommendations here. IronViz, highly recommend you check it out. If you haven't heard of IronViz yet, yes, Celine's nodding her head. It is kind of like Iron Chef. If you know what Iron Chef is, it's these vizzers that go head to head trying to visualize something beautiful, something meaningful in, I think it's only 20 minutes, which is absurdly crazy, but they do it. Usually it's live. This time they did it virtually, which is a little bit different, but they still managed to make it really fun. So you can do that, get some inspiration, see how other people are doing crazy things in Tableau. Other things, if you're a little bit more interested in the technical parts of Tableau or what's coming, Devs at Desks is a really, really good one. And then we also had Devs at Desks, data skills for data people, which is also really fun. This year, we also had the opportunity to have Data Plus Diversity. So Wade Davis, he's from the diversity team on Netflix, and they talked a lot about the work that they're doing on diversity and inclusion. We also had a Data Plus Women dedicated channel by Kamal Ahmad. She talks about how she's fighting world hunger and how data plays a role in that. And we also had a fireside chat with Francois. He's our Chief Product Officer, if you don't know who he is, and he loves to talk Tableau and what's coming with Tableau. And then the last thing was the Vizies. So the Vizies is actually completely community run. It's nominations by the community for the community. So I recommend you check it out because it's just other users like yourself. Beyond TC, so if you do go to that page that I mentioned before, you can check out some additional links, some additional resources. There'll be some fun little things if you want to learn a little more about like Blueprint. If you're not sure what Blueprint is, again, go there and check it out. You can find a little bit more. It's all about deployment. I'm sure everyone has any questions about that. Usually, if you're, you know, just starting on your Tableau journey internally, or even if you've used it for quite a while, I find it's quite helpful. And then we also include our infamous TC20 playlist. So every year, Tableau conference, we usually have Data Night Out, which is, as the name suggests, a super fun time with data people. And we have a playlist on there for all the pop-in tunes. As I mentioned, we had IronViz. So the winner of IronViz this year was actually from another Tableau user group, which is really, really exciting, from Tucson, Christian Felix. So he leads that. As you can tell, he's super excited to be winning. It's definitely a really intense challenge. So I really commend him and, repping the community team, from the Tableau user groups over there in the US. So go check it out. It's really fun. And this is the visualization that he created. So the theme was all about cities and pollution, and definitely watch the video because he explains the storyline to this a lot better than I can. You can actually see how they build this, how they prep it. It's very beautiful. And if you click the link in this presentation, you can actually go to find it in Tableau Public and play around with how he did that. Some other highlights. So we had the Tableau community channel. So this was the first time this year that we ever had something like that. It's just a channel dedicated to all community content. There's some really cool things, like I mentioned before, the Data Plus Women, Data Plus Diversity. We also had a how to build an interactive resume, which I think a lot of people would love to learn how to do. So recommend you check that 2-part series out. We also had the Tableau Public Viz Gallery, which is still live, even though Tableau conference is over. You can go in and have a look, browse through the community vizzes. There's a representation there from all over the world. There's visualizations about food, about sports. There's something in there for everyone. So definitely recommend you have a look. There's some really nice music playing in the background. So have your headphones in and you can have a nice and relaxing journey. Think of it just like an art gallery. And see if I can get my GIF to work so you can see. So that would be what your virtual experience would look like. And they have different visualizations and you can click on it and have a little bit of a look, which is very cool. And next slide. Some other highlights, we also had some community happy hours. So just like what we're doing today, right now, we had a whole bunch of community people logging in and chatting together, talking about what was happening at the conference. I'm hoping that we can do something like this again next year if we're virtual. So stay tuned. I'll definitely keep you guys in the loop. And these are just some of the names that we had of the leaders that were leading that front. So we've had Europe, we've had Americas, we had, Asia Pacific joining in. It was a really, really fun experience. Tableau Doctor was also back. So if you're not sure what that is, think of it like a clinic session. You can go in and book some time in with a Tableau consultant, or sometimes even a Tableau Zen Master, a Tableau ambassador. They're there to help you with all your Tableau technical questions. Big shout out to all the people that were able to participate in that. It was a big, big effort and very, very helpful, I'm sure, to the wider community. And we also had brain dates. So brain dates was like a really fun way for community people to get together in smaller round tables, but virtually. It was all centered around different topics. So if you had a topic, you could put it in on brain dates and then chat. It's something that we usually have at Tableau conference in person. So this time we were able to facilitate it virtually. And from a product and perspective, this is, I'm not going to go through everything, but this is a quick flash of everything that was announced that's coming for Tableau. You can see all of this on the tableau.com website as well. There's some really cool things coming in there for everyone. I'm sure you can see at the bottom as well, bringing Einstein Analytics and Tableau together, which was one of our big announcements. Other things that I know a lot of people were excited about was the Slack integration. I'm a big Slack user, so this is great news for me. Prep Builder and Browser also very cool, and a lot of Tableau Bridge improvements and a lot of other cool things. So definitely check that out on the tableau.com website. We had a bunch of TC training offers as well that were mentioned. I won't go through each one of these, but these links are still live. So again, you can see that these actually need to be purchased by December. So if you head over to the different sites now, you'll still be able to use these offerings. Definitely do that very quickly though. I know it's the 26th of November already, so time's ticking. And yeah, a big thank you from the whole Tableau team. If you were able to participate, this was a huge, huge effort from just Tableau as well as the community, from every single person that made this come together. It was a really great experience. And without you, we wouldn't have it. So thanks, guys. Now, Tableau conference is finished. Thanks, Ellie. But I did want to touch as well on data literacy for all. So data literacy for all is a free, completely free e-learning program that we've developed that includes over 5+ different, I think it's like badges for you to get up and running with data. Like it helps you with your data skills. This is great to share, especially with your colleagues. If anyone's hoping to upskill in that place, it's again completely free, and it's a foundational understanding to data analytics. So I highly recommend you guys check it out because it's available across all regions. It is initially offered in English. I think there will be more translations to come, but if you can just, I'll share this actually slides after this so you can have a look. But yeah, data literacy for all. If you're not sure, again, tableau.com has everything on there as well. And that's it. Thanks, Ellie. And I think we have some, oh, and Celine's sending out the link for this public.
All right, thanks, Caroline, for the TC news. Jason for the introduction.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Chung, Tag Manila leader. I am pleased to introduce our guest speaker for today. He's originally from Manila, Philippines. Mendelsohn has been providing data analytics expertise for organizations in a wide variety of verticals and industries for 6 years. Mendelsohn's passion lies in tackling problems that lie at the intersection of data analytics, cloud computing, and business strategy. He aims to draw on his cross-functional business background and technical skills in data engineering, programming, and data visualization to help organizations capture value and gain competitive advantage. Mendelsohn is an avid traveler who has backpacked across Southeast Asia, traveled through 7 countries in Europe, and visited over 20 cities in the United States. When he is not developing ETL pipelines or designing dashboard in Tableau, Mendelsohn, a self-proclaimed coffee snob, like to spend his time exploring third wave, independent cafe while reading a good book. Fellow Tableau learners, let us welcome Mr. Mendelsohn Neil Uy-Chan.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jason, for the kind introductions. And again, thanks so much for taking the time, everyone, to come participate in our second Tableau Manila user group virtual webinar. And so before we jump into it, allow me to quickly share my screen here and give a brief intro about myself. There we go. And how's the screen, folks? Everything's looking good? Ellie?
Yeah, we can
It's good?
see it.
Awesome, perfect. Okay. So as I mentioned, my name is Mendelsohn Chan, and in terms of a brief background about myself, was born and raised in Quezon City, and I'm a proud alumnus of the Ateneo de Manila University, where I graduated with a degree in management. One fun fact about me that I would like to share is that my all-time favorite comfort food is sinigang. And for our non-Filipino friends on the call, highly recommend this dish. Feel free to try it out because it's just amazing. It's sour, it's tangy, it's hearty, it's brothy with meat and vegetables. So I think it's my favorite Filipino dish of all time. I'm also a self-proclaimed boba milk tea fanatic. And so that picture you see over there, I think that was taken from what I believe to be the very first milk tea store / restaurant of all time. And so that was taken in Chunshuitang in Taiwan. And again, last but not least, I'm a proud Filipino through and through. And I think it's worth mentioning that I am currently temporarily based in North America, specifically in Toronto. And so that picture you see over there was taken from the Philippine Independence Day celebrations a few years back, conducted at the Toronto City Hall. But again, that being said, I'm very much excited to head back home to the motherland, right? Once the current global situation does improve. Okay, so let's jump into the agenda now for this afternoon. And before we get the ball rolling here, I do want to talk about some of the main talking points and the topics that we shall be going through. Okay, so first, I do want to provide the lay of the land in terms of the client case study that we'll be going through. And as indicated in the title slide, we will be focusing on a consumer packaged goods CPG / FMCG use case. And then I do want to take a deeper dive into some of the pain points and challenges that that particular client faced with respect to their data and analytics reporting requirements, right? And of course, deep dive into how Tableau saved the day from an end-to-end enterprise analytics deployment point of view. And then lastly, if time does permit, we'll love to field some questions from the audience. Awesome. One quick caveat, though, that I want to mention is that due to confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements, I am unable to share any specific client information on the case study that we'll be going through. But with that being said, I will aim to be as detailed as possible in sharing with you the key technical details of this particular Tableau implementation. All right. So again, let's talk about this real life case study of how a company in the CPG sector used Tableau to solve their most pressing business challenges. And so here we have a 10,000 foot big picture overview of what that project entailed, right? And like most CPG companies, they rely on the retail partners to distribute and sell their products to end consumers. And so this particular client had 20 or so retail channels in the form of supermarkets, drugstores, convenience stores, and whatnot. They were also a big player in the space, excuse me. I met with, they were selling products across different categories, amounting to over, excuse me, 1,000 different unique SKUs or products that they sell. And for folks, excuse me again, who are not familiar with the CPG industry, I do want to talk about some foundational business knowledge surrounding what a SKU is in a second, because that's a very important concept to understand. And then from a historical data perspective, this initial implementation ingested 2 years worth of historical data. So that spanned over 50 million rows of data that we processed in Tableau Prep, which we then visualized in Tableau Desktop. And then last but not least, all of this came together in a unified Tableau dashboard that allowed the business to monitor and gain insights on their retail sales performance. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, before we get into a detailed conversation on the Tableau implementation, I do want to impart some really interesting domain knowledge about the CPG industry. And so there are 2 key acronyms / terms that I want to share with you because this is really important to understand. So let's first talk about this acronym called the SKU, right? What is it? And so it stands for Store Keeping Unit. And think of it as just a unique alphanumeric ID that uniquely identifies a particular product for a company, right? Also related to the SKU, but also conceptually different, is the UPC code. And so the UPC code stands for the Universal Product Code. And it's a standardized 12-digit number used to identify products across different retail channels. And so, for example, say you are a company selling, I don't know, a variant of anti-dandruff shampoo, right? The different retailers, that particular product will have the same UPC code across all of your different retail channels, right? So now you may be wondering, what is the difference between the SKU and the UPC code, right? And without getting into too much of the technical details, here's a quick side-by-side comparison on the differences between the SKU and the UPC. And then there's a screenshot below that cites a particular example of how this is applied in the real-world context. And so the main crux of the message I want to drive at here is that the SKU is internally used, right? While the UPC is a standardized number that's consistent across the retail channels. And I want to emphasize this distinction because in the subsequent slides, this concept will appear again as we talk about some of the challenges that we faced and how Tableau was able to solve for these challenges. So taking a deeper dive now into some of the key pain points and challenges that the client faced, right? I will say that there are 4 major buckets or themes that encompass the breadth of all the pain points that the client was experiencing. And so number 1, the managers and leadership in that particular department could not get timely access to the reports because their entire reporting process was very much manual in nature and it was being conducted in Excel, right? On top of that, their delayed access to reports, impeded them from making agile decisions. Because as you can see from the 3rd bullet point, right, there was a 1-month lag with respect to the leadership obtaining a report on the previous month's sales performance. The second challenge now revolves around the topic of data governance. And because of how the department was set up, wherein there were different sales analysts responsible for different retailers, there was a lack of standardization in terms of how they were doing and calculating the reports. So to cite one particular example to illustrate this further, right? One retailer could use the term ship revenue to denote, gross revenue, while another company could be using the term POS sales, and another company would use the term gross sales. And so there are all these different nuances in terms of how the numbers are calculated. Because, for example, one analyst could be incorporating returns. So there's a negative sales component to that, right? Because we need to deduct the dollar value of returns from overall sales. And then hypothetically speaking, another analyst could be ignoring this additional business rule in the calculation. Also related to point number 2 are data cleansing challenges. And I'm sure you guys have experienced some of these challenges yourself if you've worked in data analytics tools like Excel and data warehousing platforms, for example, right? So these are all very, very common problems that we needed to solve for. But just to zoom in on one particular example there, I think, again, because we were collecting data from different retailers, these different retailer systems could have a different fiscal calendar than the company, right, the producer or the CPG company's fiscal calendar. And so doing all of this complicated date math in Excel was, again, a very manual and tedious process. Lastly, right, when the final reports are being disseminated to the business end users, they were all fragmented, right? There was no unifying interface to stitch together the big picture insights for all of these retailers. And in addition to that, there was a lack of dynamic interactivity, right? When leadership wanted to slice and dice their data across a variety of different dimensions. So here's a funny screenshot that kind of summarizes some of the key challenges that we talked about earlier. If you have experienced something similar, please leave a comment in our chat box, as I'm very curious to know how common this problem is across different companies. Another interesting metaphor that also captures the crux of the problem that we just discussed, right, is this really funny picture over here of the blind man and the elephants, right? And so I'm sure all of you have experienced something similar throughout your working careers. And so now that we've got a good grasp and understanding of the challenges that we need to solve for, right, in this particular case study, I'm very much excited to move on to the next topic of our conversation and talk about how Tableau saved the day. So here we have a really high-level, end-to-end solutions architecture that encapsulates all the key components of this particular initiative. And I know that there's a lot going on in this slide, so let's talk through each of these steps together, step by step, and understand how each key component played its role in the overall big picture. So let's focus now our attention to the beginning step of our journey, right? The company, right, was receiving raw POS files, raw POS data files, right, from its retailer partners, and it was arriving on a weekly cadence. Right? So what we did was we built this secure internal storage repository, right, where retailers could just dump their files into an internal location within the company. We then built a very simple ELT workflow in Tableau Prep to perform the ELT process to load the raw data files into a data lake in our Snowflake data warehouse. And then once the data was loaded, we leveraged a Python script, which we developed as well, to move these raw CSVs into a separate archival folder within the company's network to ensure that they don't get loaded or processed again by Tableau Prep, for example. One thing that I would like to call out and emphasize in this particular slide is that the ELT process was actually conducted and not the traditional ETL process. And that's the reason, and the reason for that is because we wanted to store the raw, untampered version of the data in a data warehouse environment to ensure that we have an audit trail of the raw data for the company. And then, so once the raw POS data was loaded, right, let's now focus our attention to the other data sources that will further enrich the primary sales data source. So this included, product catalog data, market research data, and internal ERP systems. And because we already knew the schema or the end state table we wanted to extract, right, we performed a traditional ETL process to load these tables and objects in our Snowflake data warehouse, right? And so once everything was inside, we created this really final ETL workflow in Tableau Prep to create these reporting layer, semantic layer tables and views to power the Tableau dashboards that we developed, right? And so moving on now to the penultimate step in the process, we leverage Tableau to create a wide array of dashboards for, I would say, two primary analytics use cases. The first of which is for exploratory ad hoc analysis, and the other is for operational reporting. So one thing I like to emphasize in this particular section is that these two types of analysis patterns are quite different, actually, in terms of its overall approach and objective. And so in the ad hoc type of analysis, the goal here is to unearth insights and spot trends, spot anomalies, test hypotheses, check assumptions, using a variety of different statistical visualizations, right? Like scatter plots, box plots, bell curves, and whatnot. On the other hand, right, operational dashboards are meant to be, I would say, clearly defined from an end user requirements perspective. And the purpose of the second type of dashboard is to track our key organizational KPIs and metrics, like POS sales, POS units, gross sales, trade expenses, and so on. And so another characteristic of the second type of dashboard, or second type of analysis, is to benchmark over different periods in time, right? And so for this particular project, we had to calculate all of our metrics in terms of its YTD, QTD, MTD, week-to-date totals, and then benchmark against the previous fiscal year to obtain our year-over-year percentage change in overall growth and or decline. And then last but not least, right, once all of our dashboards were finally developed, we deployed it in a very secure Tableau server environment where we organized the content in a variety of different project folders. So one key requirement of this initiative, right, was to eliminate the manual pain points, right, the very manual and tedious nature of the client's previous reporting process. And so sitting on top of Tableau server is this really amazing new add-on, right, called a data management add-on. And a part of that particular feature is this really cool thing called a Tableau Prep Conductor, right? And so what it does, it sits on top of Tableau server and it automates the entire ETL flow that we develop in Tableau Prep, right? So earlier, I think I mentioned that we developed a variety of different ETL workflows to extract, transform, and model the data in the right type of schema to power our dashboards and exploratory analysis efforts. And so all of this was being automated by Tableau server in conjunction with the Prep Conductor. And so for the next couple of slides, I do want to focus on this particular capability and speak to it further, just because this was an absolute game changer for us and for the client. Okay? So again, what is Tableau Prep Conductor? In a nutshell, I would describe it as your ETL process on steroids. So it supercharges your ETL process. It allows you to schedule and automate your workflows on a recurring cadence to keep data fresh. So what you see there is a screenshot of a variety of different options from when you can run your flow. So all you need to do is pick a schedule, right? Say, for example, every night, 11 p.m., I want to refresh the data, which was pulling from the Snowflake data warehouse, right? You're also able to see a historical log of every single time your flow ran for a really transparent audit trail. Another cool feature that was really useful is out of the box alerts. And so that's a real email actually I got, which notified me that there was an error in my Tableau prep workflow. And so this allowed me to just quickly jump right in and troubleshoot and fix, isolate that particular problem so that the flow could be running back up again, right? So again, just to recap, Tableau Prep Conductor is this really fantastic add-on that sits on top of Tableau Server to facilitate and orchestrate, right, this end-to-end process from all the way up from raw data source systems to the staging integration layer, and moving on to analysis and consumption and deployment. All right. It's going to leave this slide for a couple of seconds more for you guys to digest, and then let's proceed to the next topic at hand. There we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4 key phases or steps. So before we wrap up this particular segment of our webinar today, I do want to invite all of you to come join again our Tableau User Group Manila official Facebook group. We'd love to meet new folks and members and grow the Filipino Tableau community further. Likewise, feel free to add me up on Tableau Public. We'd love to collaborate on any Tableau projects together. If you have a good idea, feel free to shoot me an email, and we'd love to connect and collaborate on some projects together. So I think that wraps up my part of the presentation today. Thank you all for your time, and really looking forward to seeing you all again in future Tug Manila user groups. So handing it back over to you, Ellie, to facilitate our Q&A section.
All right, thank you, Mendelsohn. So guys, can we have a questions about the topic? You can chat or raise your hands. I think we can ask questions except for the customers, the client of Mendelsohn, because
Of course, yeah, any
he is
proprietary
in
information is definitely.
there's a proprietary information. We can ask the process on how he end up with those numbers, giving that there's a data lake or raw data coming from from the input and then visualizations. Yeah. Anyone from the participants? Mendelsohn, I have just one uh, thought.
Oh, I see
When,
someone
when,
messaged me privately. Oh,
oh,
sorry, you had a
okay.
question, Ellie? Yep.
I have one thought on the process that you showed. Can you show it again?
Sure. The architecture slide, right?
Yeah, the architecture slide. This
Sure.
is this is a new thing for me. Uh, we're not doing this in our company. That there's a
Mhm.
data. This is very raw data for me. That this one. So the data coming from retailer, product, market, and internal ERP systems. So how will you deal with those different kind of data and then transfer to data lake, and then because there's a handshake for us. Me, I consider myself as a beginner. What handshake or systems that you're using or any trick on that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think someone had a question as well about Tableau prep, and so
Yeah.
I think within the Tableau product ecosystem, it's quite new in the family, and I'll get to some of the questions in a bit. I think we had some folks who had some questions about Tableau prep, but to really answer your question at a high level, I think just to make a distinction again, the ELT process, where we're just loading the raw files in Snowflake just because we want the raw data in its purest form, right? And
Okay.
all of these workflows were actually done using native connectors to Tableau Prep. So no scripting involved, right? For the market research data, we were tapping into, I think, a Redshift data warehouse. Product catalog data, I think, was an SAP, and a couple of Excel files here and there. And so Tableau Prep was able to connect to all of it. And so you don't need to write any SQL code, no need to write any pandas in Python. All of the ETL, the joins, the unions, the aggregations, the group bys, right? All the data cleansing efforts, which are talked about, like removing trailing zeros, which are super annoying, by the way, because it just ruins your workflow, right? So all of this was being done in Tableau Prep and then automated and scheduled using Tableau Prep Conductor.
Okay. So follow-up question, is there a subscription on that? Because I tried connecting to Oracle in our own cloud server company. There's a subscription for those things.
For prep in particular, right?
Yes.
So I think, again, I'm not sure how the current licensing agreements are in Asia or the Philippines, so I can't really speak to that. But I think in the States or North America, based on the current subscription model, if you have a creator license of Tableau Desktop, you also get Tableau Prep as part of that particular bundle. Again, I'm not sure about the specifics for APAC, but I'll make sure to research on that and I'll inform the broader community. Because again, I think Tableau Prep is becoming more and more ubiquitous these days.
Okay, Mendelsohn, you can proceed to the question that.
Sure. So I think we have two questions here. So the first is how powerful is Tableau Prep as an ETL tool? I have used DataStage, SAP, and Informatica. Right. So this is from Andre. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, Tableau Prep is a relative new tool in the Tableau product ecosystem, right? And a few years back, I will say that it was still in its infancy in terms of capabilities, right? Because again, those are the early days of the product. I think Tableau Prep has come a long way from its early stages. And so with 2020.3, for example, you now have the capability to write tables to your database. So before, you can only export as a CSV or as a Tableau extract. But now you can actually conduct your ETL process within your actual data warehousing environment. And so, for example, in the staging and integration layer, the second part over here, right, the entire environment was in Snowflake. And we built all the workflows tapping into Snowflake, right, from raw data, enriched data over here using Tableau Prep. And I think I mentioned earlier that we were able to process, again, we were only ingesting 2 years worth of data initially, right? But for this particular initiative, we ingested around 50 million rows of data. And the level of granularity was actually at the daily level for a particular product. So as you can see, that could grow exponentially huge over time, right? Because a company was selling 1,000 different products. Imagine multiplied by 20 different retailer channels times all of the sales on a daily level. So Tableau Prep was powerful enough for this particular use case. I think Tableau Prep still has a lot of improvement to go in terms of becoming a full-fledged ETL tool. But as it stands, it's constantly improving, and the Tableau folks are very much innovative in terms of adding new capabilities to it every quarter. Okay, we have another question from Sandeep. Thank you for asking this question. How did you solve the external data loads to this architecture? Okay, external data loads. Do you mind elaborating more on what you mean by this? Sandy, feel free to unmute yourself as well if you want to speak.
Yes, please. Or do I need to unmute?
No, Sandeep should be able to unmute if you want, or type in the chat if you can.
Sorry about that. So I'm actually outside, so if you're going to hear a lot of background noises, my apologies.
No worries.
So technically, what I was referring to is, let's say you got, I assume the architecture, what you built on right now, is more on one single database. So what we do in our organization is we bring in data from multiple sources into a data warehouse.
Mhm.
And there are some instances where we can bring in external data. Like, for example, survey. Now, SurveyMonkey is an external source, and usually we get the data out of a data pool, and sometimes it's available in an FTP. So we saw challenges using external databases coming in. So did you encounter those kind of issues specifically when connecting external data sources? That was my question.
Sure. That's a great question. Just quickly check if Tableau Prep is able to connect to SurveyMonkey. So I'll follow up on this just because you mentioned SurveyMonkey, but to answer your question really briefly, Tableau Prep can connect to CSVs, Excel files, all sorts of different databases, SaaS platforms like Google Analytics, Marketo, Salesforce, among a whole host of other applications. And so as I mentioned here, I think you mentioned that you were dropping your raw data files into an SFTP. So that's very, very similar to what we did here, right? All of these retailers had access to an internal folder, which you can only access via VPN, right? So they would drop their files here, and these are raw CSV files, and would just load it right away with using Tableau Prep's native connectors to the data lake in Snowflake. And so all of these initial steps were done in Prep. Likewise, as with the final ETL flow, to develop your dimensional data model, for example, or reporting layer schemas to power your Tableau dashboards.
Sounds good. We'll give it a shot. Thank you.
Yep. And feel free to message me on the Facebook group as well if you have any technical questions. We'll love to help out and share my knowledge to the broader community.
Absolutely. Well, thanks.
All right. Awesome. All great questions. I think we have room for one more question. And I see Carolyn, you love Prep as well. Woo, Prep. Likewise, I share the same sentiments.
I'm doing a shameless plug as well. There is a Tableau Prep user group if people are interested in learning more about Tableau Prep. So I can send that link to you, Ellie, if you want to share it with the group.
Sure.
Essentially, the guys, they get other, we call them preppers. They get in there,
Yes.
talk about different ways they're using Tableau Prep. There's also, if people want to get a little bit more savvy with their prep skills, I think it's a prepping challenge every week. So if you want to test that out, if you just Google it, it will come up. I can see someone's actually raised their hand.
All right.
Ian's raised their hand to speak.
Don't be shy. Feel free to ask your question.
Okay. So my question is actually about the raw form of data. Although I understand that prep is where you process your raw data, or where you usually clean your data before it goes to your desktop or online. I was wondering what were the standardization formatting that you did, because I'm assuming that this was the first time that they're doing Tableau, so data must be well, quote unquote dirty, or there's no standard process for doing it. As you mentioned, there was no single point of truth. So what were the different I guess practices that you put in here before you actually put it to prep?
Amazing. Yeah, that's a really great question. So I think this is more of an overall business strategy / process question more than the actual implementation itself. And again, just to be very clear, in terms of what we did for this particular project, what we did was we talked to all the sales analysts who are responsible for different retailers. Imagine retailer ABC could be assigned to person A, and then a new set of retailers could be assigned to person B. And as I mentioned, right, there's no standardization. And so what we first did was conduct requirements gathering or discovery interviews with each of these analysts and understand the nature of the raw data of each of these retailers. So for example, one retailer could be using the term ship revenue, which could incorporate returns, right? And so the dollar value there is not consistent with, let's say, retailer B, who's calling it gross revenue, right? And so we just had to find a way to document the entire process and say, okay, this retailer, we're doing returns. Let's make sure that we apply the same logic and formula across the board. Similarly, dealing with different SKU IDs, we had to normalize and convert all of that with a standardized product lookup table or a dimension table to make sure that we consistently report product level information in the same way. And what I mean by this is, for example, one product could have different SKUs across different retailers, right? But we all know it's the same product, right? It's if you're summing up total sales for this particular product, it should be one number. But because of the inconsistency in the SKU IDs, they were being reported as 4 separate products. And so now you're not getting a full picture of the total sales performance of this particular product, right? And so things like this, I think, are more process-oriented, which we fleshed out and documented in a variety of different requirements gathering interviews. And then from there, we actually design the end state schema in mind already. And what I mean by this is aligning on naming conventions, for example, right? If all of these retailers are calling sales differently, what do we want to call it in the final dashboard? And even before the calculations are done, we need to be very deliberate and proactive in terms of how we're going to do the business rules, right? For example, make sure that returns are incorporated across all of the calculations, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, actually, just a follow up. So if you're introducing a policy for standardizing data quality and governance,
Yep.
how managing data sets that are, let's say, unstandardized or not following the protocols that you have set? So for example, if you have data sets that are not let's say good for your prep, so what would you do to those data? Would you purge them or would you manually edit them?
So you mentioned if Tableau Prep could not ingest the raw data?
Yes. No.
Oh,
What
okay.
I mean is, you said that there was a schema and there was a company decision to put data standard and quality policy. So
Exactly.
how do you manage those data that are not yet following that and those standard?
Gotcha. Yep. Perfect. So this is where I would say the ad hoc dashboards come into play, right? So we actually built a data quality dashboard feeding off of the raw data stored in the data lake. And so very basic profiling, like min max values for a particular dimension or field, how many null values are there? Are there inconsistencies in the SKU IDs or the product codes? And so we built an ad hoc dashboard to flag and inform the users that, hey, there's something wrong with this raw data or there's something anomalous about it. And so doing simple descriptive stats like min max values, standard deviation, median averages, and so on, calculating the number of null values, making sure data types are correct. So for example, I think I showed an error message where my Tableau prep flow broke. And that was because I think there was a date field that had a random letter somewhere in the cells because someone accidentally typed something, I guess. And so that destroyed the flow because Tableau prep is reading that column as a date time value, but the random text string just ruined the workflow in that sense. So we created a separate dashboard altogether just to flag data quality issues. And then once we saw that, we would inform the analyst or whoever to rectify the situation, or sometimes it was really just a system generated error. And so we just had to make a mental note of it to fix that in the Tableau prep workflow. And without getting into too much of the technical details, right, there's so many different functions or capabilities to do that. Like top of mind, the most common one is an if null function, right? If you find this value to be null, then, and so on. Right? But yeah, I think there's been a lot of interest lately on Tableau prep. So I think that's a potential topic that we'll talk about in our subsequent Tableau user group meetups.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. So I think we're at time. So we really appreciate everyone's flexibility for taking the time to join our session today. Ellie, Carolyn, any final words
Yes.
before we wrap
Thank
up
you. Yes, thank you guys for the active participation and for those questions. I would like to share the screen. Okay, so this was for the award. Let me read the certificate award. This e-certificate award this certificate of appreciation to Mendelsohn Chan for imparting his valuable time and during the conduct of second Tableau user group Manila virtual meetup and webinar on Tableau for the CPG industry. How Tableau created an end-to-end unified view of sales operations across 15 retail partners for a global fast-moving consumer goods company. Signed by Jason Chung, tag leader, and yours truly. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Ellie, and the entire community for participating in today's call. Carolyn and Celine for leading and nurturing the Tableau community in the Philippines. Looking forward to seeing you all in our future webinars and virtual meetups.
All right. Anything to say? Or last words, Caroline and Celine?
From Caroline, thanks everyone for joining and taking the time to dial in and listen to this. I hope it was really helpful. I've shared some links in the chat as well about prep. I know there was some questions. And yeah, I think we'll have this up on YouTube by tomorrow. So if you look onto the Tableau YouTube account, you should be able to find this recording if you ever wanted to rewatch that.
All right.
But yeah, thanks everyone. And Celine.
Yeah, thanks everyone for taking the time, spending your evening with us, although it's just 1 hour. Really appreciate your time and staying all the way. Mendelsohn, thank you so much for your sharing. It was really insightful. And to the community, we're always looking for new leaders. So if you're interested in joining us, you can always reach out to Ellie or Jason, or just indicate your interest in the Facebook group, which, yeah, the link is also in the chat. So thank you, and we will see you next time.
Right. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe. Take care.
Take care. Bye.